So we're talking about new games, but let's talk about old games. So one of the things we've been talking this week, or this episode seems to be kind of revolving between comparisons of Sony and Xbox. Um, One of the key differentiators between the two is their approach to backwards compatibility. So Xbox has been making a huge push for this in terms of Xbox Game Pass, backwards compatibility. What's that program that they have where it's like there's a term for it or whatever where you know you get like the best edition no matter what system you play on. So you can play an Xbox Series S on a Xbox One or whatever, and it'll upgrade or whatever or downgrade as it needs to.
I can't remember what they call it, but I know what you're talking about.
Either way, Microsoft is building an ecosystem where no matter what system you're playing on, no matter what game you are playing, it was designed for. It kind of works, and they've been getting a lot of praise for that. And Sony, on the other hand, has been struggling a little bit. So with Sony, they've been slowly doing like upgrades and backwards compatibility, but it hasn't been as pushed and as prioritized as it has for Microsoft. And I kind of want to hear from you in terms of, do you think this is going to be this is something that Sony should be focusing on? Like, does backwards compatibility matter?
The short answer is no. And the long answer is I'd still like it. you know, if I'm being completely honest, and I'm not trying to be a dick, but the vast majority of gamers do not give a shit about playing 360 games on their Xbox One, or not their Xbox One, their Series X. That's not to say that they shouldn't do that. That's not to say that some people don't and really love it. But let's be completely honest here. There are so many games on the market right now, unless you basically just follow what the hype train says, in which case there's not that many games apparently. I anytime I hear people say that, I'm like, do you guys look at the store whenever, like, or do you guys just literally do whatever the company tells you to buy? Is that what's going on? But there is so much stuff. I have.
Wait. I think I said this episode that there's no games to play on the PS5. What are you saying?
Well, if you're talking first party, yeah. And if you're talking specifically PS5 games, yeah. But
all right,
if you still have a PS4, you're sitting there being like, I'm glad there's no PS5 games. I'm still trying to catch up.
Yeah. Sorry, I sidetracked us. Go ahead.
But like, I have Final Fantasy X 10-2 HD remaster on my PlayStation 4, and I want to get around to it because I haven't played that game since I had it on my PS2. However, Outriders just came out. I still have Miles Morales to go through at some point. I also have 2 Tomb Raider games that I haven't played yet. I still have all the other games that I'm playing, like casually, like Fall Guys, Enter the Gungeon, Noita. Not to mention anything the Game Pass might come up with. Not to mention any freebies that PlayStation Plus might bring next month. I mean, they just brought out a couple sets now, although Oddworld's not really my thing, and I've already gone through Days Gone. It's not that great. I'm kind of not surprised. It's a free game. But like, there's that zombie army, like horde mode shooter. But there's
Why
just
is
a
it that every
constant
time
cascade.
we talk about Sony games,
What did
Days
I do?
Gone is not as bad as you portray it.
Oh, Days Gone is pretty brutal.
No,
It is boring.
No,
It's so boring.
it is not a boring game. Like,
Either that, or it's just maybe I'm zombied out.
It is a good game. It is. I'm not gonna say it's underrated because it's not. I wouldn't say it's overrated either, but like, it gets a lot more shit than it deserves. Like, I played it, and doing those hordes is super fun. Riding around your motorcycle is awesome. I really liked the story. Like, I thought it was a really good story. Probably could have used an editor a little bit in terms of cutting it down, but like, I thought the gameplay was awesome. I thought it was fun to go around and like fight the zombies, get attacked by a bear, whatever. Like, I think it's a good game. If you haven't played it and it's on PlayStation Plus, I think it's one that gets a lot
Well, I
of
mean, if
crap
it's
that it
free,
doesn't
try it
deserve.
anyway.
No, but I mean, like, people are like dismiss it always, like, oh, Days Gone, it kind of sucks, blah 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 blah. Like, I think it had a pretty cool story. I really liked the relationship between Deacon and his wife. Like, I thought like the cutscenes were awesome. I thought his wife was like super cute, and I just love the relationship that they had. I think it's really good. Does it have its flaws? Yeah, it's kind of awkward at times. It's a little long, and like, it's probably longer than it needs to be, but it's fun and the gameplay's fun. And so I'm not trying to die on the hill that this is the best game ever or it's like a best Sony
So
exclusive.
okay,
But
I'll just go back to bashing the original trilogy for Uncharted just to keep making you angry.
all right, sorry, yeah. So yeah, I know what you're saying though in
But either way,
terms
the
of
point still remains is that like for the average gamer, there's no time to go back and play your old library because there's a constant influx of games these days. So like backwards compatibility, it's not like I'm going to say it's a bad thing, but is it a vital thing? I don't see what's vital about it. It makes sense if we're talking the last generation. Like you want to be able to like PS4 needed to be available on PS5. You couldn't do that twice in a row. Because people, if you want to make an easy transition to getting your new console, you have to be able to have them bring their games with them because they didn't finish every game. So they
no.
want to be able to have the opportunity. So that makes sense. But I wouldn't want to go back and play PS3 games or PS2 games out of my way. At that point, that ship sailed for the most part. Like most people now, if you're getting a PS2 game, you're likely collecting or you're trying to get like old games you remember as a kid that your parents probably sold off. So you're trying to
Yeah.
get your collection back. Like, and sure, maybe you will play. Like, I've got like Chrono Cross on my shelf. Maybe I'd love to go back and play that again sometime. But am I going to find that time? I'm not really sure. I might be able to find time to pull up, my old emulators and play like not Super Smash, like Super Mario World or something like that for like 15 minutes. But like, I don't have time to go reboot friggin' Persona 3 and play another like 60-hour RPG with all the other games that keep coming out at me. So it really depends. Like, if you're the type of person that is so heavy on nostalgia, then maybe backwards compatibility is your thing. But I think for the average gamer now, there's such an overwhelming of new games that I don't know if it's like a priority. I mean, it's great if you do it. I've seen people give the idea that PlayStation now should start leaning more to the retro gear because they're clearly not going to put their big games on there because that's their system seller. You want the money off of your Last of Us and your Uncharted's and your Spider-Mans and stuff like that. But if you say open it up to the old PS2 or PS3 library and just put as many of those games on there and say like, hey, you guys want to take a trip back in time? $20 a month, let's go. $15 a month, let's go. It would make sense. But I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
they need to go out of their way to be like, because when they did the PS2 on PS4 thing, I thought it was cool, but I didn't buy any of them because
Yeah.
I didn't need to. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm of the same mindset. Like I have a collection. Like I think I've sold maybe 3 or 4 games in my lifetime since I've been playing video games to people, and for the most part, I keep them, and I still have them. I still have my old NES. I still have my original Xbox. Like I have it all.
I wish I could say
I
that, but
don't.
my parents apparently didn't see the value in these things. I could have made so much money selling old games.
Yeah, no, I've never really looked into it. Like I like to keep them. Like some people keep books, but the amount of times, like I think the amount of games that I've replayed, it's pretty limited, and it's never I go back and play like a game from 20 years ago. I find that we hold this nostalgia that, oh man, this game was great 20 years ago. It's great today. And there are some, but like this is a industry and a hobby that is constantly improving. Generally, I mean, people would argue, but I mean, it is one where it's built upon, previous iterations. So the things that we take for granted now aren't in those old games, right? There's a lot of BS that we've gotten rid of because it just doesn't make sense. We iterate on each new game and each new console, and we get rid of the things that don't make sense. Like the whole live system in games used to be BS, and now we don't really have it anymore because it doesn't make sense. So, do I think backwards compatibility matters? No, I think right now we're kicking and screaming for it because we're just looking for something to play, and we are looking at those old systems like, oh man, I'm playing Cyberpunk right now. um my wife and I were playing Lego Marvels 2, and those are PS4 games. We're playing them on the PS5. So right now, does it matter? Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be something that, in a year or 2 years from now or even 3 years,
When
like
production lines are back up, it's not going to be an issue anymore.
nobody is right now kicking and screaming that they can't play their PS2 games on their PS4s because that's done. It's something that it helps with the transition. But if you think back to PS4, like it didn't work backwards compatibility with the PS3. And what did we end up doing is they just end up putting PS3 games on the PS4. Like they just either did like a re-release later on, or they did, available on both. Like I remember, I think it was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Was there a PS3 version of that? I think there was.
I mean, I assume so because I played on 360. So
Yeah, so like
I
I
think.
think it's one of those things
Did I actually?
where
No, maybe I played that on PS4. Shit. I don't remember now.
looking it up real quick.
Let's see who can do it faster. Haha.
Ah,
Oh, my computer's failing on me.
all right, here we go. Here we go. Black Flag PS3. Yes, it was a PS3 game. So I mean, if we didn't have, if from the get go, like, because you know that these studios are told in advance, like, hey, there will or will not be backwards compatibility. If there wasn't backwards compatibility, they would just release it on both systems in those first early months. Like Cyberpunk would have 100% had a PS5 and a PS3 or a PS4 release if there wasn't this backwards compatibility thing.
Yeah. I
So
find that a lot of the backwards compatibility, like people that are like desperate for it, are the ones that think that the industry is the worst it's ever been. And I got to make a long. I plan to sit down for like an hour and just go through every point that I've come up with to counter that, or
yeah,
every point to that. Like I want to do like a video where it's like here's the actual reasons why you think this way, because I think anyone who says that the industry like there's no the gaming isn't as fun as it used to be, there are 1,000 reasons why that's actually the case for you, and none of them actually lead to the games being terrible.
yeah.
Like
It's
the simplest example is that we put nostalgia way too high. We think every game that we remember is a 10 times better than it actually is. Now, in some
100%.
cases, some of them are great. Like, obviously, Super Mario is pretty damn good. Like, you can go back and play that over and over. But, like, there are some games on my shelf alone for PS2. And I know this because I went and played some of them when I first moved into this apartment because I took all my stuff out, was like, oh, yeah, I haven't played my PlayStation 2 in forever. I should go back and play some of these things. And I popped some of these discs in and I went, this game's actually not as good as I remember.
Yeah, and that's not to say they're not good, but it's just like I said, we iterate on each release, and
Well, and these
we
games were
hold.
also fresh.
Yeah.
So the content was fresh, the story was fresh, the gameplay was fresh because that was the best gameplay offered back then. But
Mhm.
you play a PS2 like shooter right now, and then you play Call of Duty on PS5. Oh, you wouldn't even dare go back to the PS2 version.
Yeah,
But
100%.
you will remember that PS2 version the same way that you probably play your PS5 game now. The difference is, and I'll do like the one like obvious reason was the nostalgia thing. Here's the most real reason, and like the depressingly real reason. Most of us are adults now. We have responsibilities, and life sucks for a lot of people right now. Not just because of the pandemic, but because of like what everything else is in life. You know,
Adulting. You can just call it
all
adulting.
all the things that exist out in the world right now that are actively depressing the crap out of us, it puts everything on a downer. So
Mhm.
everything seems worse. And because the industry is bigger than it's ever been, you see more of the horrible game development stories. Like you see your Cyberpunk fails, you see what Star Wars Battlefront 2 ended up being, you see what Anthem and Avengers have been. You remember all the bad stuff immediately, but you forget all the bad stuff that you probably sifted through when you were a kid too. And some of them you probably think were great just because you were a kid and didn't know any better.
Well, that's the other thing is like we don't you don't see the amount of like we never had the amount of like podcasts and um like gaming news and
Like we had
websites and
Nintendo
stuff.
Power, but there weren't like 50
That was just
Nintendo Powers on the shelf every day that we could read. Like there was that and maybe a couple more things.
and most of them were corporate shill
Yeah, they
websites
were
like
never
magazines.
negative.
Yeah, so and I mean it was mostly just like your circle of friends and like you only have so much money for a video game and you bought the wrong one. You're not going to admit that, hey, I bought a garbage game.
Like I got
So
Wario's Woods on Super Nintendo, and it's just a friggin' like Tetris game. And I had to tell myself constantly, no, this is a great game, when I could have been playing like Link to the Past, which I never got to own. So
exactly.
when you're that age too, and especially because you didn't have financial control over what you got, you just had to force yourself to like whatever you had because it's all you had. Now you have
Yeah.
full control over what you get. So if you get something that's not as good as you thought it was going to be, all of a sudden it sticks in your craw because that's money that you spent.
I guess it's like you said, what was impressive then is not necessarily impressive now. So I have a story about this. Like it's a little bit of a tangent. But did you
I
ever
mean, we've
watch the
already
movie
gone on
28
a
Days
pretty big one, so
Yeah. Have you ever watched 28 Days Later?
I know of it, but I never watched the movie. I'm not too big
Okay.
on those ones.
So I watched it not right when it came out, but shortly after it came out. And I'm like, man, this movie is awesome. And it is a good movie. I'm not taking that away. But like, I remember it looking like some sort of blockbuster movie. It looked great. Uh, my dad was watching it this like yesterday, I think, and I looked at it, and it honestly looks like it's filmed by a bunch of college students. Like, and I remember back then, I'm like, no, this is like, it looks great, it looks professional, it looks like high production value. It wasn't, but like, I remember it being that way, and then I see it today, I'm like, oof, this did not age well. And I think that's the same with video games. Like, we look at them. The go-to for everyone is GoldenEye. Like, GoldenEye back in the day was, oh my god, holy crap, it looks like Pierce Brosnan. Now it doesn't, and it looks actually terrible. So I
Unless
think it's one of those
unless you
we
play on
nostalgia.
big head or DK mode, then it looks amazing.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those we like the idea. I mean, it's obviously as consumers, like it's a better value for us. I don't think it's something that we genuinely need or something that we need to focus on. And
And I don't
right
even need
now,
I don't even need data to prove that not enough people would play it for it to be like a viable option to be like that's your focus.
yeah,
So if you do it, it's a nice addition, but it should never be like Xbox, Sony, or Nintendo's focus. It never should be. You should always be
yeah,
focusing on your future because that's where the money's going to be made.
yeah. And like I said, we're gonna be in 8 months' time. We're gonna be playing our new games, and we're not gonna be craving this backwards compatibility like we are now.
And like anybody said, when we were waiting for the PS5, would it have been nice to be able to just stick your copy of Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation in your console and play it? Absolutely. But did
Hmm,
you need to? No, not really. You didn't need
yeah,
to. If you own a copy of it, chances are you have a PlayStation or a PlayStation 2 that you can play it on. So
yeah,
you weren't desperate for it. You just want to be able to have it all in one box so you don't have to plug the other one in. That's all it is. You want an all in one
exactly.
box. And if you want an all in one box, go get a Retron.
Yeah, or PC.
Yeah.
And you just spend your whole days updating drivers and getting graphics cards.
We're not saying that backwards compatibility is a bad thing. We're just saying it doesn't need to be the be all end all.
And the thing is, like, especially right now, if backwards compatibility is something that's important to you, like, those are the people who hold on to their consoles, right? Like, if you want it, like, if you want to play your old games, like, hold on to the consoles, or it's gonna be easier and easier to find one as people switch over more and more. They're gonna be selling their PS4s and their Xbox Ones, and yeah, it's there if you want it, but I don't think it's necessary.
No.